tell me a little bit about what do you mean by basic income?
By basic income, I mean that everyone, every individual, should receive an amount of cash sufficient to cover their basic needs, as defined by how we define basic needs, be it for food, shelter, clothing, utilities, the basics. I wrote an article recently about basic income as a social vaccine, and I believe that this is a good way of thinking about it. We're always trying to put out fires. So, if there's crime, then you want to crack down on crime. People want to prevent drug use by cracking down on drug use. People want to prevent poverty by giving them food, and we should avoid preventing these things happening in the first place. If people have sufficient resources, then they're healthier. They don't need to go to the hospital. We saw this actually in the Manitoba experiment. It was reduced by 8.5%. We see this with crime. Just like in the Namibia experiment, we saw that crime was reduced by over 40%. If people have their basic needs met, we're not going to spend all this money on all this other stuff that we wasted on for not covering it in the first place. I like the idea of financing basic income in a variety of ways. I don't believe that picking just one way is the way to best go about it. I see it as looking at it as a tool in a toolkit, and we want to expand our toolkit. So this means, like Bill Gates wants to see more of a consumption tax. So we're also, in the US, we're basically the only ones not to do a value-added tax. And a value-added tax is actually very helpful for exports. So, like, Obama wants to increase exports, and Bill Gates wants to see a consumption tax. It makes sense that we should add a value-added tax at some point anyways. So if we're going to add a value-added tax because it's regressive, then we're going to want to give money towards the bottom anyways. So that already makes sense. So we should have a value-added tax at some point anyways as one point. We should also have, I think, a land value tax. This, I'm not sure the best way to go about it either at the federal or the local level. It could be either or. But we do need to generate revenue by creating dividends to the commons for our common ownership. The way we currently allow this land value to be appropriated by only the wealthy doesn't seem to make sense to me. It just results in rising rents, results in empty land, it results in people not being able to find homes because they're not developed. So it just makes sense to me to have a land value tax, to also reduce other taxation as well. I believe that income tax should also be something that we should reduce and we should flatten. I mean, it just makes more sense to have a flat tax versus something else. And again, a flat tax is another something that if we were to change to a flat tax, again, it's naturally regressive. So if we're going to do a flat tax, again, that needs to distribute more money to the bottom anyways. Milton Friedman, his version of it, of the negative income tax, look at it that way, where he set his level at a certain level, and then below that, you receive money, and above that, you pay money. And that way, it's not regressive. This makes sense to me as well. It seems more of a fair, universal thing as well, that everybody pays the same amount of tax. So the same percentage seems to be something that everyone could agree on, be it if you're earning $10,000 a year or earning $4 million a year, you pay the same percentage as everybody else. And that percentage that you're paying makes sense to be given to everybody in the same amount of money. So that seems to work well to fund a basic income as well. And then there are other funding sources too, that we should look at. If we want to reduce pollution, we want to reduce CO2 emissions, then we should tax that. And again, if you tax carbon, then that's going to like raise oil prices, and then people at the bottom are going to be paying more, so they're going to be hurt. So a lot of these things that are regressive that we should be doing hurt people until we actually give everyone money to balance it out. So there's a lot of these solutions that I feel that we should be doing that we can't actually do yet until we have a basic income, because otherwise you're hurting people at the bottom. So I look at this as a toolkit. I think that we should actually, like, if we combine a value-added tax with a land value tax and an income tax and other things, we could actually have a very low income tax. Like, we could have it, say, at 15% or something, and then so people would only be paying 10 to 50% of their income for income tax, combined with value-added tax, combined with land value-added, combined with land value tax, and combined with these other things, carbon tax, all this other stuff. We should be looking at these as a toolkit.
Will people be lazy? And do people deserve to just get money, or should they work for it?
I don't think that work should be attached to income. I think that those things have been confused by us. I think that people should be free to use their intrinsic motivation to do what they want to do, and they will do it. You actually see this, it's part and parcel with this idea of not working is when you think of vacations. People think that you're always wanting to go to vacation, and that's one of the reasons why people say, aren't these people going to stop working? Because we, as a society, we just think, oh, I can't wait for the weekend. Oh, I can't wait to go on a vacation. But they don't really think about staying on vacation for, say, 2 months or 6 months or a year or 5 years. Like, at some point, you're done doing nothing. Like, you need to do something. And that's what we as a society have not encouraged. We don't encourage people to do what they want to do. And as a result of that, all people think about is not working. But people do work. People do work all the time. People do unpaid work. Wikipedia is such a great example of what's possible when people do the work that they want to do, and they're not even paid. They do it because there's a passion for it. And it's an unheard of success. That who would have thought that a group of people not getting paid would create something that would become the largest encyclopedia in the world, overtaking World Book and Britannica. It was unheard of. You wouldn't think that that'd be possible, but it is. We did it. People do work all the time that's unpaid. And so, of course not. If people get paid at the start, it's not about pay for work, but if just people have what they need to survive, everyone's going to be doing all kinds of amazing work. And they're going to be passionate about it. And that creates better outcomes anyways. And for the work that people don't want to do, that's always another question. The work that people don't want to do, they'll have to get paid more to do it. There's always a price. If we're saying how can someone say clean toilets for $10 an hour? It's like, well, maybe someone would, maybe someone wouldn't. If you have a basic income, maybe you wouldn't. Would you for $20 an hour? Would you for $30, for $50 an hour, for $100 an hour? I mean, at what point? There's definitely a point where people will want to do that work because suddenly it makes sense to them. So no, people are not going to just stop working with a basic income.
What's your take on technology?
I think the rise of technology in our lives is possibly the biggest driver in need for a basic income that we have. It's going to force our hand. At some point, we're not going to have any other choice. And by that, I mean, if 10 million jobs are lost and people don't have any other recourse, things are going to get bad. If people are put out of work and there's no other recourse, I mean, we're going to have social strife. It's amazing. People don't understand. This is actually what brought me into the movement in the first place, is I didn't even know. I have always been interested in technology, and I had no idea that in Australia at Rio Tinto you had robotic trucks moving the ore around. They were already automating their entire operation. They have plans to not only have the robotic truck fleet but then attached to robotic trains, and they're eventually going to automate the entire process. So this idea, you think of a mining operation, you just think of all these trucks and all these workers and all this stuff going on, and it's just going to be all machines. As long as we don't have a basic income, technology will be something that people fear because it eliminates jobs. And you see this like with Applebee's. When Applebee's recently, like last year, or I think it was last year, they introduced tablets. The first thing people worried about was, is Applebee's going to fire people? Are they going to let go people from the workforce? And Applebee's actually has to say, for good public relations, to say that, don't worry, we're not getting rid of anybody. You know, we're going to keep everybody still. It's just supposed to be better this way. But you don't actually need that. They could reduce their workforce. And arguably, people should be reducing their workforce. But as long as we have to require these jobs in order to live, we're not going to be taking full advantage of our technology. We're creating our own roadblocks by not having a basic income. We just trounce ourselves from the time that we're babies. Like, you go into school and it's all about this extrinsic motivation. You want to, we give people grades, we give people rewards for this and for that. We actually don't encourage people to do what they want to do as a passion, and we do this our whole lives. And it's because of that, I think, that we're always in competition with each other. We think that because we create these artificial scarcities, that we have to compete with each other, but we don't. These scarcities are artificial. And just as with basic income, that I think will remove these artificial scarcities. We can actually start working together, all of us.